Welcome to the Home Business Podcast with Richard Captain Henderson, publisher of Home Business Magazine, and Sherilyn Colleen, managing editor. This how-to show helps you successfully operate your home-based business.
Greetings and welcome to the Home Business Podcast. I'm Richard Captain Henderson, your skipper at Home Business TV.
I'm Lynn, your co-host.
Let's gear for seeing, get underway. We've all heard the term mompreneurs a lot on the Home Business Podcast about their struggles and triumphs juggling family and business.
But what about Dad-Preneurs? More and more men are choosing to work from home, and they're facing the same challenges.
Today's guest, author and entrepreneur Brian Dixon, definitely checks the Dad-Preneurs box.
Brian Dixon turned his failing business into a success by turning a me-first approach to his professional and personal life to people first.
Brian is a dad of 3 young kids who works from home and has just released the book, Start With Your People.
Brian shares success advice today that both dadpreneurs and mompreneurs can use to grow their startups.
So greetings, Brian Dixon. Welcome to the Home Business Podcast. Say hello to our listeners.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on our show.
Hey, let's see a copy of that book cover.
Woo, here we go. Start with your people.
Cool. So you're connecting in from the beautiful dynamic hub of Charlotte?
Charlotte, it's where a lot of people work from home. There's a lot of telecommuting. There's a lot of home-based businesses. And so you guys are in the right place. And I know many home-based business folks in person.
Well, I just like thinking there's been so many from the Charlotte area. We're going to have to come up with the term Charlottepreneurs.
Charlottepreneur. There you go. I like it.
Well, let's get to know you better. So you're a dadpreneur, author, speaker, and podcaster. Brian, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, you know, I when our second child was born, I felt like there was this ticking clock that I wanted to be the dad who was going to their school events. I wanted to be the dad who could take a bike ride with the kids in the middle of the day, or if they had a teacher work day, that I could be available to the kids. And I realized that in my current job, and I was running a nonprofit. I was running a charter school network. So we had 2 schools that I was running. So it was a dream job. I really enjoyed what I was doing. But as my second child, my first daughter, was born, I realized, you know, the dream for me really is to be a fully engaged dadpreneur, to be able to run my own company from my own home. And so for many of you, that's why you're listening to the show, because you're either doing it right now and it's going well, or it's not going well, or you're dreaming about starting your own home-based business. And so I've lived through the highs and the lows of that. 6 years later, still doing it. And so it's true. Yesterday they had a teacher work day, so the kids were home, and I had a work day. You know, I had about 4 hours of work that I needed to do, but that gave me the space to take a nap with my 3-year-old son, take a walk with my 9-year-old son, and to do a craft with my 6-year-old daughter. And I got to tell you guys, that's what it's all about.
Well, dialing in on this a little bit, sometimes, you know, what I found is that people working from home, they might actually work more than 40 hours. I mean, you know, you're running your own business, it takes more time, but you have the flexibility. So you can, you know, if you structure your time right, yes, you may be working evenings and catching up on the weekends, but you have that flexibility. You know, it's important to be at that teacher's meeting or whatever when you know, if you're working that traditional 8 to 5 job, you're blocked out.
Yeah, there's a number of advantages. I'm sure you guys are already aware of all those advantages, but, you know, just getting rid of the commute. You know, my commute's about 17 steps across the hallway.
I got 15 steps. So
there you go. So that commute is wonderful. I do like being able to hop on at different times. So for example, in one of our companies, we had a live webinar last night, started at 8 p.m. Eastern. It went to almost 10 o'clock. I never had to do anything like that for my traditional job, where we go with that late into the night. But then I could sleep in. I could kind of run the morning the way I wanted to. So that's definitely an advantage. But one thing that we don't talk about a lot, but it really matters, is the ownership. You know, that you're actually the owner of this enterprise.
Yeah.
And if you do it well, you're building an asset. So that's the key difference that I've realized over time is, yes, I'm working from home, but I'm also working on a business that is valuable, that one day we could sell or have investors or what have you, that just was never true when I was working for somebody else.
Yeah, I like your epiphany moment when you said, you know, you had another child and you wanted to spend the time. I had that moment when I'd gotten into working from home, but I was walking my kid to the bus, and it dawned on me, you know, it was kindergarten, and it was like, okay, if I was working that traditional 8 to 5 job, I wouldn't be able to do it. So sometimes
Right.
sometimes you discover it after the fact, but it's definitely there. Well, Brian, your new book is called Start With Your People. Who does your people include?
Yeah, it includes everybody who's in your life. So if you think about the math on that, there's 7 billion people in the world, and there's probably just a few hundred that are actually in your circle. So we're talking about those kids at the breakfast table, your spouse, those clients you work with, your team, your neighbors. So there's actually a pretty small group of people that you interact with on a regular basis. And one of the challenges that home-based business owners have is, how do I grow my business? The answer is, start with your people. Start with the people that are already in your life. Are they aware of your services? Are you serving them well? And that's how your business can grow, by focusing on the people that are already in front of you.
And so even if, say, you've got a national focus on your business, maybe you don't see those people day to day, but you're still interacting with them on, Facebook or emails. So they're still, even though they're virtual, they still could be your people, and they can help you in your business.
Yeah, there's not one person on my team or one client that I have that is within 50 miles from me. So everybody I work with is online in some sort of virtual space, yet they're my people. And so as a boss, my people include my team. As a coach, my people include my clients. And as a father and a husband, my people include my kids and my spouse. And the more that I show up for them, the more that I think about what can I do to make their day, the more energy and attention I bring to the business to help grow the business, and the better the results are as well.
Hey, you're part of my people too.
That's right. Now we are. Now we're connected.
It's virtual, 2,000 miles away.
Amazing.
So Brian, how did changing your leadership mindset to people first impact your business?
Oh, it really changed everything. I know that sounds so grandiose, but it really is true. Business owners, it's hard for us to read our own label. It's hard for us to see, like, I launched this product and nobody buys it, or I sent out these emails and people unsubscribe, and I thought they were going to buy and they unsubscribe. Like, why? What's going on? And many of us, probably you listening right now, you've been there. Something has not worked. And the answer is to get external feedback, because it's really hard for us to read our own label. I was talking to somebody the other day, and he said, it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. And you, as the business owner, are in the frame of the picture of your business. And so I was working with a business coach, and he recommended that I do a 360 assessment where you ask people anonymously for their feedback. What's Brian good at? Where's Brian stuck? And if you could tell Brian anything, what would you say? And the feedback I got, there was some positive for sure, but the negative feedback said, Brian often puts projects over people. And this is as a stay-at-home, work from home Dad-Preneur that is putting projects over people. And it just caused me to be a lot more introspective about, how am I impacting the people that are already in my life? And that's where the epiphany really came from. And it completely changed my business.
Well, as far as like getting that kind of feedback and getting out there, you see all the noise from social media and all the distractions. Does that sometimes make it tough to get that feedback you mentioned here that's so critical to improving your business?
In some ways, I think that any tool can be used for good or for ill, right? So you think about like water as an example, right? Water is, you can swim in water, you can drink water, water is amazing, but also water causes some pretty serious destruction. I used to live in Louisiana where we'd get big hurricanes. Like, water can actually kill people, right? And so, and in Minnesota where you guys are, like, water in the form of snow and ice, like, people can get really seriously hurt with in the winter, winter weather. And so in the same way, you look at social media, it's a tool that can be used for a deep connection, or it can be something that just distracts us away from what's really important. So just as a really quick example, I love Instagram. Instagram can be very distracting. And especially when you're looking at other entrepreneurs and you're saying, like, why are they so successful? And I'm really struggling. Like, that can be really frustrating. That's a negative part of Instagram. But the really positive part, and why I love it, is because you can send these direct messages to people. And so I have my coaching clients, most of them are small business owners, who will just send me a little voice message through Instagram. And I can check out what they're doing, and I can send them a message back. And it's a really personal way to connect. So I think it's not the tool itself, it's the way that we use the tool.
Well, it's good you mentioned Instagram. I mean, that definitely is the big up and comer, and it's, it does take time, but you need to be there, and you need to find the time to get out there, because that's a growing way to make these interactions. But let's talk a little bit about work from home. Also means family interactions, good or bad. What role does family play in your successes?
Many entrepreneurs that I coach, they see their kids as their liability, as, I've got to pay for gymnastics. This school uniforms are so expensive, or I don't know how we're going to afford that family vacation, or I don't even know if I can take off that time. But instead of seeing your kids as your liability, what if you saw them as your legacy? And what I've learned to do is include my kids in the process. So just really simple things, like, for example, the book cover actually has my family on the front, because you've got to start with the people in your life. And I've known too many entrepreneurs who have had a big win in their business. They got some sort of award or hit some sort of a sales rank, and their family was a part of the fallout from that they neglected their family in order to focus on their business. And I actually believe that you can include your family in the process. So, publishing a book can be one of those family neglecting activities. It can be one where you're just so focused on the sales number and all the parts of creating and launching a book that it can be really distracting away from the family. But the day that the first initial copies arrived at our house, the kids were so excited because they'd have been included in the process. And so as the UPS guy was walking up and dropping off the boxes of books, the kids were literally bouncing up and down because they couldn't wait to see the final version, because they'd been part of the process. And that's all you need to do, is just include your kids in the process. So for example, yesterday I mentioned I had a webinar. I said to my kids, hey, listen, I'm going to say goodnight to you a little early because I've got a big presentation. We've got people from all over the world signing in to watch Daddy teach. So can you say a little prayer for Daddy, because I'm really excited? And they said, yeah, Dad, we'll do that. And then this morning, my 9-year-old said, Daddy, how did it go last night? And I told him how it went, and he's involved in that process. It can make such a big difference.
So the key thing there is getting them involved. It sounds like it's communication. I mean, if your kids are older, sometimes you can bring them in. We have done that, do a little bit of work in the business. But what you're saying is just making sure that you're communicating with them about what they're doing, what you're doing. That's enough to get them brought into the process and to buy into it.
Absolutely. I talk about it quite a bit in the book. Especially as a home-based entrepreneur or home-based business, you're setting the tone of your home. The words you use, the sounds of the home is tuning your kids to what's normal. And as they grow up, when they look back on their time in your home, they're going to think that's what it's like. Like, that's what my home should sound like. That's part of their experience. And so I want to use life-giving words. I want to include kids in the process. I want to openly talk about money, talk about goals, even share discouragement and when we have losses in the business, because I want my kids to know it's not always perfect. There are challenges that we face, and the more that we can share with them, depending on their developmental stage and age, the more that they'll be better prepared to be leaders in the future.
I like that. You said tone for your home. That rhyme, I mean, that can be trademarked. Can I steal that from you?
Please
tone
do.
For your home. That's good.
So Brian, kind of tying into that, technology can often get in the way of interpersonal interaction.
Yep.
How does technology harm our approach to putting people first?
Yeah, you're right. We are now constantly connected. And for those of you that work from home, you already know this, that your phone is connecting you to the office and also connecting you to your family. And there's really no separation. It's not work-life balance. It's work-life integration. There's an old James Michener quote where he talks about the master in the art of living. As you see him, you can't tell if he's working or if he's at play, because to him, it's the same thing. And that's what I would challenge you to do. 2019, where we're recording this, is an amazing time to be alive, because you can actually really enjoy what you do. And even if you do fulfillment by Amazon, you do FBA, or you sell something online that you're not necessarily passionate about, there's a way to make it your hobby. I think you have such an opportunity to be excited about the work that you do. And the challenge with that is being always connected with your device. So in our home, we have a 5 to 8 rule. So 5 to 8 in the morning, because I wake up early. So 5 to 8 in the morning, I'm not touching my device. And then from 5 to 8 at night, I'm not touching my device. And so those are these 2 windows. So 6 hours a day, the phone is not in my hands. It's in the charger up in my office. And that's a good start. I'm sure there's other things that I could do, but for me, that's the one way that I found to keep work upstairs and connect with my kids and with Julie, with my wife, during those 2 windows.
Yeah, so you've got to set some boundaries then. You can't just like have a mindset, hey, I'm going to, keep a firewall up, personal business, because, you'll just forget about it. But you've got to set some firm rules then on, when you're going to be on devices and when it's family time to, keep it all working okay. That's
right. To be candid, I mean, usually where I see entrepreneurs struggling the most is they're not making enough sales. Like they're just not making enough income. And so the reason you're struggling, let's just call it what it is. The reason you're struggling is because the income's not there, because we're playing business. We're doing all these things that don't affect the bottom line of getting new clients in. So
yeah, that's funny you say that, because I've been saying that from day one. Every home-based entrepreneur is a salesperson, and you've got to have that mindset every morning.
That's right. And so, for example, for technology, so a big chunk of my revenue is in personal coaching, where I offer 3 coaching calls over Zoom. And the way that most of the time when somebody signs up for my coaching, it's because they followed me on social media and I directly interacted with them. So for example, a new Instagram follower, I reach out and say, hey, thanks so much for the follow. And then what I'll do is I'll go and look at their profile. I'll see, oh, look at they're an author. So I'll read a couple of their things, and then I'll send them a voice message and I'll say, hey, I read a couple of your posts. I think you're doing a great job. Here's maybe one tip I'd have for you. So I do a little bit like a sample of the kind of coaching I do, and often that leads to landing a client. So you can use the technology that you have access to land more clients. You just have to do it strategically.
Yeah, you got to look at those ways to interact and capitalize on each one. And I guess it's growing and expanding in 2019 with how much more prevalent social media is becoming.
Oh, absolutely. I'm 41 years old, and so I've been using technology for a while. And there was a fundamental shift in technology when we went from MySpace to Facebook. And not a lot of people talk about this, but up until Facebook became the most popular social media platform, the mindset was that we have 2 lives. We have our online life and our offline life. And so as an example with MySpace, if you guys even remember MySpace, you would create this sort of character, this persona of yourself. You choose the color scheme of your profile, and you could even have a song that would play when people landed on your page. And you kind of created like, this is how I want to present myself to the world. And then Facebook came, and you weren't even allowed to choose your username. You had to be you. You added your real email address. You had to put in your real age, and if you tried to post a profile picture that wasn't a human, it wouldn't let you do that. And Mark Zuckerberg, a long time ago, he said, we really believe that there's only one, that you're one person, and so be the one person you are online and offline. And I mean, you can agree or disagree with him as much as you want, but that's what social media is now. So meeting you here and talking to you here, if I saw you in person, I would expect the same kind of person that I'm talking to. And people are expecting more vulnerability, transparency, and authenticity. And that, I believe, is an amazing opportunity for us home-based businesses. So one little tip is I use Instagram stories, and I just try to post at least one little behind-the-scenes kind of series of videos each day. So, hey guys, I just got this thing in the mail, check it out. Or, hey, I'm about to hop on this call, look at the tools that I use. And the more that we kind of share the journey, the more people are invested in our business and want to work with us.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the downsides with social media and video and all. There still is a challenge of loneliness for those that are working from home. What are the few tips that you have on avoiding loneliness when working from home, even though you are doing all that interaction with social media?
Yes. And start with your people. In my new book, there's a whole chapter on friends. And as I was doing research for the book, read over 70 business books to prepare for it. And I noticed there were not a lot of chapters on friends. Not a lot of business books talk about the importance of your social connections. So I highly recommend that you start a mastermind group, a group of other peers. So other people that have maybe similar businesses to you, or at least can relate to what it's like to work from home, and meet on a regular basis, maybe a weekly or a bi-weekly basis, just to check in. What's a win in your business? Where are you stuck right now? And maybe what's a resource that you can share? Just a weekly meeting like that over Zoom, an hour is enough time to remind yourself and the people that you're talking to that they're not alone. You're not alone. And then I started using a tool called Voxer a few years ago, Voxer. And Voxer is like a walkie-talkie app. And it's so powerful how I'm thinking about somebody in my business. I can hit that little walkie-talkie button, send them a little message. And that's most of my day, is checking in with people or getting messages back from people. I don't feel lonely, even though literally I'm working in a closet.
What do you think about like just making sure you get out, like,
Sure.
Chamber of Commerce or Rotary or Lions or some kind of group, just to, kind of build that personal interactions and networking? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know of many people that are involved in those kind of groups. And so I don't ever want to put those down, but I do want to say, I think that there's a new model. Those aren't really working for me. What I've learned to do is to connect with other people in my industry. And one way that I do that is by attending industry conferences. And then I host a breakfast. So I reach out to the speakers and a few other people that I know in my industry. And I say, hey, I'm going to be in town. Looks like you're going to be in town. Let's all get together and have breakfast. And often breakfast is the cheapest meal of the day. Right. And you can get a conference room at a breakfast place, usually just for paying for the breakfast. So $300 or $400, you get 20 people in the room. They're some of the most influential people in your industry. And you're building these connections that you can now go from offline to online. So that's one way that I've connected.
So you got to be kind of strategic about choosing those times when you really make those connections. And you might have to plan 6 months ahead of time to get to that right conference or whatever.
Yeah, you need to plan the conference ahead of time. And I've actually found, even a week before the conference, let's say you have a conference on your calendar right now and you're a week out from the conference, people are looking to connect. They're taking all that time and energy and money to go to the conference. They want to connect to people. So, before we started recording, I mentioned a podcasting conference that I went to. That's exactly what I did. I reached out to people that were speaking there and I said, hey, I'm going to be in town. I'd love to get together with you. And many of them were people I hadn't met before, but now we've stayed in touch. So I think you just have to be really intentional.
Hey, I'm going to see you next year at that podcasting conference.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to see you there. So, the Chamber of Commerce and Rotary and stuff like that, I think that
I wasn't looking at that for like business building. I was just looking at that for kind of like just getting out and interacting with people. I don't know.
I think it's really important though, on a weekly basis, I play soccer, like just a little pickup league, nothing formal, but it's a way to stay connected to other people. I'm a person of faith. And so I attend church and I'm involved in church. So in my community, I see people at the pool or people at the gym. So like, what are ways that I can build these relationships? And honestly, most people in my neighborhood have no idea what I do for a living. They just know I work from home, but they don't really know what I do, but that's not what our relationship's about.
Well, it's got to be somebody. It used to be like, what's that person around their house? We start looking around now. It's like, could be a third of the people on the block, or maybe they're not there full time, but that's their home office now, and they're a good portion of the week. So it's the revolution is here.
Oh, it's so true. Yeah, there was they were doing some construction. They're building a new road, across the street from our neighborhood, and they cut the fiber line, the internet cable.
Ooh.
And in about 5 minutes,
there's a revolution in your neighborhood.
Everybody that works from home had walked out to the end of their driveway to look around to see what was going on. And I looked down my street, and there were 5 other Dad-Preneurs that I'd never even met, and I was like,
hey, there's your mastermind group right there.
That's the group right there.
Head to a Starbucks.
That's right.
Perfect. Well, Brian Dixon, this has been a great discussion on a Dad-Preneur triumphing. Do you have any final points you'd like to share? I
would say don't give up. You've got to look forward. One of the exercises I have in the book is about the life calculator. And real quick, what you do is you take a spreadsheet. You can do it on a piece of paper, but I'm a nerd, and so I like the Google spreadsheet. But you just write your age, your income, your kids' ages in column 1, and then you add 1, or you add 10%, and then you go to the next column and add another 1 or another 10%. and you can look out and you can project. So I'm 41 as we're recording this. So what's my life going to look like when I'm 50? What's my life going to look like when I'm 55? How old will I be when statistically my daughter's going to get married? How much income, if I keep on the same path, where will I be when my son graduates from college? And I think it's so important as home-based entrepreneurs and home-based businesses that we take that long view, because it's really easy to look at that upcoming bill and think, where am I going to, like, how am I going to take care of that? But when we think about the long view, of what are the lessons my kids are getting from seeing me work diligently? What kind of relationship am I building with my spouse? I think that's where the real difference is made.
Slow, strategic progress over time. Well, Brian Dixon, thank you for being such a great guest on the Home Business Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. To learn more about Brian Dixon and his book, Start With Your People, visit briandixon.com or our podcast website for more information on guests.
Thanks for joining us in this episode of the Home Business Podcast. Share your feedback with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at our website, homebusinessmag.com.
Visit the website for information on advertising. Subscribe to our newsletter. Please visit our sponsors. For more information, visit homebusinessmag.com or the expo at homebusinessexpo.com.
I'm Richard Captain Henderson saying, anchors away.
We'll talk with you soon. Until then.
Make it a great home-based biz day.